Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you are doing well. Our topic today is Islamic civilization, Islamic culture and worldview, Muslim world and contemporary issues. So let's start with worldview. What is the worldview? An intellectual perspective on the world or universe, or a particular philosophy of life, a concept of the world held by an individual or a group. Another definition, a set of beliefs about fundamental aspects of reality that ground and influence all one's perceiving, thinking, knowing, and doing, or one's philosophy of life, mindset, outlook on life, formula for life, ideology, faith, or religion. So, in brief, you can say it is an intellectual perspective on the world or universe. Let's see some other definitions. A set of attitudes on a wide range of fundamental matters. So it is a set of attitudes which discuss the fundamental matters. A comprehensive set of propositions about various aspects of the world. In other words, a unified and comprehensive view of the world around us and man's place within it. Basic assumptions and images toward understanding all existing things and beings. A guide or a map toward realizing one's religious, social, political, economic, and cultural views and relationships. So, ये जो वर्ड व्यू है, ये एक हमारी बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग होती है जिसकी बेस पे हम पूरी दुनिया को, इंसान को और दूसरे लोगों को अंडरस्टैंड कर रहे होते हैं. So let's see it. What is the necessity of understanding worldviews? It helps us to understand the human life. Knowing about the world's different people, cultures and civilization. If you have the understanding of worldview, you can understand the human life as well as human behavior, assisting us in interacting with nature, individuals, peoples, nations, cultures and civilization. Understanding the worldviews guide us to correct our perceptions, ideas, values, perspectives, attitudes and behavior. And if we understand the worldview, we know about the worldviews, we can formulate theories of politics, society, culture and civilization. For these reasons, we must know about the worldviews. What are the objectives of the worldview? A model of the world. Ability to explain and answer the question. When we get the understanding of worldview, so it will give us the ability to explain and answer the questions, basic questions. Ability to see through good and bad values and answer the questions. Ability to know how to act properly. Ability to construct people knowledge about existence and truth. Ability to develop worldview. So these are the basic objectives of worldview. What are the fundamental matters and queries? Actually, जब भी हम में से कोई इस दुनिया में आता है, तो he has some basic questions. Consciously or unconsciously वो इनका आंसर चाहता है, लेकिन sometimes उसको आंसर मिल जाते हैं, correct answer, और sometimes उसको correct answer नहीं मिलते, और वो इन questions को अपने mind ही में इसके unconsciousness में रहते हैं. So what are these basic questions? For example, how far out does the universe go? Did it have a beginning and will it have an end? How was it that we humans came about here on Earth? Does life have a purpose? If it does, what can give meaning to my life? Does my daily conduct matter in long run? What happens to me at my death? Existing any conception of God, existing and conception of God. What is good and what is bad? How can I know the good and the bad? How should I be treating others? How can I know? So these are the basic questions. Everyone wants to know the answer of these questions. And Worldview help us to understand these questions and develop their answers. For this reason, the Worldview, to understand the Worldview is very much important. So Worldview, what is the Worldview? Now we will explain it again. An intellectual construction which solves all the problems of our existence uniformly on the basis of one overriding hypothesis, which accordingly leaves no question unanswered, and in which everything that interests us finds its fixed place. So what is worldview? An intellectual construction which solves all the problems of our existence uniformly on the basis of one overriding hypothesis, which accordingly leaves no question unanswered, and in which everything that interests us finds its fixed place. So this is the importance of worldview. Let's see the elements of worldview. What are the basic elements? There are 7 different elements, because we have 7 different types of questions, basic questions. So there are the 7 different elements which answers to these questions. First one is the epistemology, beliefs about the nature and sources of knowledge. Beliefs about this nature and sources of the knowledge. Second one is the metaphysics, that are the beliefs about the ultimate nature of reality. Beliefs about the ultimate nature of reality. Then cosmology, beliefs about the origins and nature of the universe, life, and especially man or woman. Then teleology, beliefs about the meaning and purpose of the universe, its inanimate element and its inhabitants. Then theology, belief about the existence and nature of God. And second last is the anthropology, beliefs about the nature and purpose of man in general and oneself in particular. And last one is the axiology, beliefs about the nature of value, what is good and bad, what is right and wrong. For example, murder is good or bad. If you say good, then why? If bad, then why? If it is bad because ultimately he will kill you in response, then it's meaning that it is bad relatively, not absolutely. So these are some basic questions. Question about the knowledge, question about the reality, question about the cosmos or universe, questions about the purpose of this universe, and questions about the God, and questions about the nature and purpose of man, and then nature of value, good and bad, standard of good and bad. So these are the basic questions which construct our worldview. So, but first I must acknowledge some assumptions about the worldview that are constraint that what I say. First, your worldview may not be explicit. In fact, few people take the time to thoroughly think out, much less articulate their worldview. Nevertheless, your worldview is implicit, and it can be at least partially inferred from your behavior. Everyone has some worldview. If we don't explicit it, we can infer it from his behavior. And the second thing is that the elements of your worldview are highly interrelated. It is almost impossible to speak of one element independently of the others. You cannot discuss just about the cosmology or about the theology. It is a combination. And the third important thing is that the question I pose to you are not comprehensive. There are many more related questions that could be asked. This is not just the simple question. And the fourth important point is to be noted that the complex answers I give to this question, that is worldview beliefs, are not comprehensive. Many other perspectives are possible, and you may not find your answer among those that I suggest. But I hope they illustrate the points. So my focus will be the illustration. And fifth thing you should note that my assertion that your worldview influences your action is based on the assumption that thought is the basis for action and knowledge is the basis for thought. Of course, some actions are reflexive or automatic in nature. Conscious thought, much less knowledge and especially worldview, probably have little direct influence on them. Nevertheless, even highly atomized or impulsive actions often follow a pattern of behavior that originated in considered acts. Finally, my exposition of worldview is based on my own worldview, and the question that I choose to pose to you, the possible answer that I give, and even the way I present those example answers may be somehow related to for general understanding. So we discuss it with detail. The first element is the epistemology. What is the epistemology? Epistemology is what you believe about knowledge and knowing, their nature, basis, and validation. What are the epistemological beliefs? What is the knowledge? You may believe that knowledge is simply information. Perhaps you consider it merely a state of the brain, the result of the actions of neural mechanism. Okay, so maybe you have different kinds of views about it. Answer of this question. And the second one is what is the basis for knowledge? In other words, what is the sources of knowledge? Maybe you hold that the only valid basis for knowledge is the empirical evidence and that derived from the sensory experience. Or you may say that the reason is the supreme authority for knowledge. Perhaps you consider authority in the form of books or people as the most reliable source of knowledge. And maybe your intuition, a direct perception of the world, independent of sense or reason, provides the best evidence for knowledge. Or maybe revelation. As a Muslim, we say that the revelation is the certain source of knowledge. Direct apprehension of truth coming from outside of nature is the supreme source of knowledge. More likely than any of the above opinions, you affirm that no single source of evidence for knowledge is sufficient, but instead you ascribe certain relative weights to authority: empirical evidence, reason, intuition, and revelation, and the combination of that is the authentic source of knowledge. So there may be different answers to this question. What are the epistemological implications? Your epistemology, what you believe about knowledge, affects what you expect as valid evidence, and therefore what you are willing to believe about particulars. It affects the relative significance you ascribe to authority, empirical evidence, reason, intuition, and revelation. It affects how certain you can be about any knowledge, and therefore what risk you will take in acting on that knowledge. If knowledge is merely brain state, then true knowledge in the sense of its correspondence to the actual state of the world is suspect. Your belief and therefore your acts are at the mercy of your neural mechanism, and are valid and valuable only to the extent that those mechanisms correspond to reality. Confidence and certainty must be suspect to you. At the opposite extreme, if knowledge is an extension of a cosmic mind, then you may feel that you can claim access to real truth, perhaps directly through revelation, and that your actions can be grounded in fundamental reality. If you hold reason to be a paramount basis for knowledge, then you must discount any hypothesis that cannot be validated rationally, and you cannot use such a hypothesis as a reliable basis for action. And if you believe sensory evidence to be the test of truth, then knowledge must be verified empirically before it can be the grounds for your thoughts or acts. If you rely on intuition or revelation, lower forms of evidence are discounted. If you depend on authority to validate knowledge, you will be reticent to believe, think, or act without the blessing of some external source of authority. If you believe that certainty is possible, you can have complete confidence in the validity of thoughts and actions. You will feel justified in taking extreme measures to secure validance, even at the risk of being branded a fanatic. On the other hand, if you doubt the possibility of absolute certainty, you are more likely to assume an attitude of intellectual humility and be more prone to conservatism and moderation in your behavior. I hope you understand. So we move to the next, that is the metaphysics. That your metaphysics are beliefs you hold about the ultimate nature of reality. What are the metaphysical beliefs? What is the, for example, first one is what is the ultimate nature of reality? If someone is a materialist, he believes that the universe consists solely of matter, energy, and information, and that there is nothing outside that material universe. Just there is matter. So materialist says there is nothing else. The universe is mechanistic and uncaring, and there is no mind or God or spirit that created it, guides it, or even consider it. On the other hand, if you are a philosophical idealist, you believe that reality is ultimately nominal of the mind or spiritual in nature. There is supernatural, something outside and above nature that created it, and perhaps even now has a part in guiding it. The second metaphysical belief may be what is truth. There are three major theories with respect to truth. If you subscribe to the correspondence theory of truth, you believe that truth corresponds to what really is, that there is a direct relationship between true knowledge in your mind or brain and what actually exists outside yourself. If you believe that such a strict definition of truth is unrealistic, you may believe that truth is merely that knowledge which internally consistent. That is the consistency theory of truth, whose archetype is mathematical logic, where consistency is a necessary condition for any proposition to be considered valid. If you are a pragmatist, you hold to pragmatic theory of truth. Truth is what works. Whatever whether or not knowledge corresponds to external reality, and whether or not it is consistent with other knowledge is immaterial. What counts is that what you believe to be true leads to valued ends. If it works for you, it is true for you, though it might not be true for someone else. And what are the implications of it? If you are a philosophical naturalist or a materialist and believe that nothing exists outside of the physical universe, then you can believe in no spiritual God or something like that. There can be no absolute externally valid standards of value and morality. And with regard to truth, about the second belief, if you believe on the correspondence theory of truth, then you are more likely to seek truth by thought and act outside yourself. If you hold to the consistency theory of truth, you may be content to rely on reason as a primary means for discovering truth. I hope it is enough for this, and now we will move to the third one, that is the cosmology. Third element is the cosmology. Cosmology consists of your belief about the origin of the universe, of life, and particularly man and woman. What are the cosmological beliefs? For example, first one is about the answer of this question: what is the origin of the universe? One possible answer to this question is chance. By chance, this universe came into existence. The universe as it exists now is simply the mechanical response of matter and energy to random events and the laws of physics over a very long time. Standing in direct opposition to this, it is the notion that the universe is the result of acts of a supernatural creator that formed the universe out of nothing. These are the two possible positions. Second cosmological belief is what is the origin of life and what is the origin of man. Here again, you may believe that life and even the human race is the result of chance, random events, and natural selection. At the opposite end of the cosmological spectrum is the belief that something outside the nature instantaneously created life and before a long time. Some hold an intermediate position that of a gradual rise of plant, animal, and even human life from non-living matter, not by mere chance and natural selection, but through guidance by a divine shepherd or helpman toward a desired end, according to a plan or purpose. What are the implications of these beliefs? So, if you believe that things came to be primarily by chance, then the universe, the laws of physics, life in general, and even human life have no universal significance. This in turn implies that human thought and action themselves have limited significance. In the big picture, one thought or act is equivalent to any other. On the other hand, if the universe was created by a designer, presumably that designer had a plan or purpose, and what you do can, and perhaps therefore should, be consistent with that plan. For that reason, there should be a correct answer of these questions, correct beliefs of these questions. There is the teleology. It discusses about the substance of our beliefs about the purpose. The teleological beliefs may be the answer of these questions. Does the universe have a purpose? Obviously, one possible answer is no. You may believe that the universe has no goal or desire, and other than what its inhabitants choose to establish and pursue. The alternative is to believe that there is some purpose, there is someone who created the universe according to a plan or has adopted the universe, but in either case wishes for its some process or end state. And about the second question, what is the purpose of the universe? Here are many possible answers. The simplest one being that this purpose is unknown, yeah, even unknowable. So what are the implications of these beliefs? If the universe has no purpose, then we have no obligation to fulfill other than that what we have. Perhaps collectively choose. There is no accountability to something higher than ourselves, and no meaning of life other than what we choose. And then our acts cannot be judged according to a universal purpose. So there is no real fear of missing the mark. Our acts are neither justified nor justified by conformance or lack of conformance to a plan. There can be no direct link between in and out. In fact, out may be a meaningless term. But if there is a plan or purpose to the universe, we may have an obligation to think and act consistently with it. And therefore, life may have meaning in its context. There can be a link between in and out of this, and this may at least should make us try to act as in certain ways. Of course, obligation may not be the right term to use in regard to this purpose. If free will is an illusion, we may have no choice but to behave in a manner consistently with the purpose. Being meta whose actions were pre-programmed before time. And then is the theology. Theology is comprised of your beliefs about the God. Theological belief may be the answer of this question. Is there a God? If you are a theist, you say yes. If an atheist, no. And if an agnostic, you say maybe. Theists differ as to the number of gods. Traditional Western belief that is post-classical is monotheistic, but many people believe in multiple gods. And this second one may be about the relationship of God to the material universe. He may be the creator to or just a chance companion to it. If he is the creator, he may have made it and left, being now sort of an absentee landlord. Or he may still be interested in and ultimately involved in perhaps all of its doings. If you are a pantheist, you probably hold that God and the universe are one. Then there will be the question, what is the relationship of God to man? God may be a loving parent or a childish parent. He may be a lawgiver, policeman, judge, and executioner, or a caring but just disciplinarian. You may believe that God is indifferent to the activities of his human, and that he desires an intimate relationship with each individual person. Perhaps God speaks to us, or perhaps he has left us to work things out on our own. But what are the implications? If there is no God, then you must look elsewhere for a source and purpose for the universe. With regard to your behavior, there is no one to be accountable to, no one to be obeyed, no one to talk to, no one to love, no one to look for help in time of need, nor are any of these necessary. But if you believe in God, then perhaps you believe that you do have an obligation, that you ought to think and act so as to please Him, that you have the privilege to communicate with Him, and that you ought to be in proper relationship with Him. And then we will discuss after it about the anthropology. Anthropology usually refers to the study of human culture and human artifacts. But in the context of worldview, it means your belief about man or woman. By men, I mean all humans of both gender and all the ages. What are the anthropological beliefs? What is man? Man may be merely a cosmic accident or just one step in the directionless chain of evolution. Maybe you believe that though man is an evolutionary step, that step is nevertheless a very important one on the path of some well-earned. If you are a theist, you may see man as the gem of God's creation. The second belief is about what is the man's place in the universe. Man may be an infinitesimally insignificant part of the universe or a key step in the progress of evolution toward new and better beings. He may be merely a part of Earth's global ecosystem, or a steward responsible for all the well-being of the lower organism and inanimate elements. Then there will be a question what ought men to do. Maybe you believe that you have no obligation to anyone or anything beyond yourself. Or maybe you do have a responsibility for all the well-being, for the well-being of the universe in general and in men in particular. The third one is the fourth one is man basically good or evil? There are different answers. For example, Western thought, grounded in the principle of Christianity, had fallen men to be fundamentally sinful, but Islam is different. What are the implications? If we are mere mechanistic elements of the universe, then we are free to think and act on impulse, and we and our behavior have no special significance or value. If we are steward of the creation of God, then we have a responsibility to take care of our part of the universe. If man is basically wicked, then we should resist certain natural inclinations to evil, considering that evil is so intrinsic to our nature, and such resistance is ultimately futile. We must look to someone or something higher than ourselves for forgiveness, redemption, and moral strength to behave as we ought. After it is the axiology. The term axiology comes from the Greek word axios or worth. In philosophy, axiology is that field that concerns itself with the subject of value and all pro and con of assertion. But in the context of worldview, your axiology consists of your belief about the nature of value and what is valuable, what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. Virtually all elements of your worldview, from your epistemology to your anthropology, are intimately related to your axiology, and it is your belief about the value of things that are proximate cause for most of your behavior. What are the axiological beliefs? For example, what is value? Maybe you define value in terms of worth, but if so, you run into the problem of circularity. For worth is usually defined in terms of value. Perhaps you believe that value is merely a personal preference for things. Then the second belief is what kind of value are there. You may think that value is value, but more likely you acknowledge that there are several kinds of value. Non-moral values, for example, economic value, aesthetic value, simple goodness, and moral values, the extent to which a thought or act is morally right or wrong. Is value objective or relative? You may believe that value is objective. That is, it is inherent in the object of consideration and independent of anyone's assessment of it. Value is then built into the universe, a fundamental metaphysical reality. Or perhaps you believe that value is subjective, that it exists only in the mind of the subject, for example, in your mind, and therefore varies from subject to subject. If so, then you must believe that an object has no value independent of a subject that assesses it. There is another belief: is value absolute or relative? You may believe that the value is absolute, that there is an absolute, eternal, and universal standard of value which applies to all people and any other moral agent for all time. Perhaps on the contrary, you believe that value is relative to the time, specific place, culture, or an individual. There are no standards of value that apply under all circumstances. Then you believe, what is the source of value? This follows closely from but to the previous two questions. The value of a thing or act may be imposed by self, or it may be decided by a society or culture. Perhaps you believe that value comes from the very nature of the universe. Some believe that the value is defined by God. And its implication is that it is impossible to overstate the importance of your axiology in determining your behavior. It is the foundation for all of your conscious judgments and decisions, and therefore the basis for all purposive thought and action. Although some acts are reflexive or instinctive and cannot therefore purposive thought and action. Also, some acts are reflexive of the or instinctive and cannot therefore be ascribed to conscious reference to your belief about value. Any action based on even the most cursory reflection has its foundation in your standards of what is good and what is bad, what is wrong. Regarding your beliefs about the nature of value itself, if you believe that value is relative and subjective, then you need not worry that your standards of value are more or less valid than anyone else. There can be no universal standard against which to judge to your thoughts and acts. If value is relative and subjective, you have no moral obligation to act in a certain way. You are free to choose and abide by or ignore any standard you create yourself or adopt from society. You need feel no guilt for being bad if you have been true of your standards. On the other hand, if you believe value objective and absolute, you do have moral obligation. There is right set of standards to judge against, and you should think and act according to those standards. So, what are the conclusions of this all discussion? So, in summary, your worldview is the set of beliefs about fundamental aspects of reality that ground and influence all your perceiving, thinking, knowing, and doing. Your worldview consists of your epistemology, your metaphysics, your cosmology, your teleology, your theology, your anthropology, and your axiology. Each of these subjects of your worldview, each of these views is highly interrelated with and affects virtually all of the others. I claim that you have a worldview and that your worldview, especially your axiology, is the basis for and therefore fundamental to what you believe about the particulars of reality and what you think and do. If you deny that you have a worldview, then you are naive, willfully ignorant, or simply misled. You cannot argue your case to the end. For to do so, you must invoke more and more fundamental beliefs, leading you ultimately to what I have defined as your worldview. If you deny that your worldview fundamentally affects what you think and do, then you must acknowledge that your behavior is impulsive, reflexive, or emotional at best, ignorant or irrational at worst. Assuming that a worldview can be incorrect or at least inappropriate, if your worldview is erroneous, then your behavior is misguided, even wrong. If you fail to examine, articulate, and refine your worldview, then your worldview may be in fact be wrong with the above consequences. And you will always be ill prepared to substantiate your beliefs and justify your acts, for you will have only proximate opinion and direct sensory evidence as justification. If you fail to be conscious of your worldview and fail to appeal to it as a basis of your thoughts and acts, you will be at mercy of your emotions, your impulses, and your reflexes. Not that such responsive behavior is always bad. You will be inclined to follow the crowd and conform to social and cultural norms and patterns of thought and behavior regardless of their merit. So if you are unwilling to acknowledge and articulate your worldview, to make known your fundamental opinions, and to bring to the front of discourse your basic beliefs, you are being intellectually evasive at the best or dishonest at worst. Those around you must always be in the dark concerning your underlying beliefs and motives. They will be forced to guess, perhaps wrongly, the true meaning of what you say and the purpose of what you do. If you consider a worldview a private matter and take steps to prevent the open discussion of worldviews, you are in effect imposing your worldview on others. By doing so, you would deny individuals the opportunity to bring their own worldviews fully to bear on matters of common concern and the opportunity to examine their worldview in the light of others. You would effectively restrict public discourse, trivialities, and underground assertion. On the other hand, if you use a position of power or authority to impose your worldview on others, or somehow force others into adopting elements of your own worldview, you are denying them the opportunity to seek out their own answers to the important questions posed above. You may be personally responsible for condemning them to life with an erroneous worldview. You may be denying truth and goodness a chance to manifest themselves in those who are manipulating. And anyway, in the end, when your power even them wanes, they may come to reject, even abhor, the beliefs you have imposed upon them. Your worldview, anyone's worldview, is too important to ignore if there is such a thing as obligation. We as knowing, thinking being, having an obligation to examine, articulate, refine, communicate, and consciously and consistently apply our worldviews. To fail to do so is to be something less than human. Socrates, during the trial for being impious to the Greek gods and corrupting to the youth of Athens by his teaching, said, "The unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life is not worth living." He was right, and without complaint, he accepted the sentence of death to prove it. There can be no stronger testimony to the validity of these assertions than that. So you have to develop the answer of these questions according to your worldview. Thank you guys for this philosophical discussion. Shall I meet you in next episode?